Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Kent City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2020. This is a remote meeting due to the COVID-19 health and safety requirements and by order of the governor. Welcome to anyone joining us on the Facebook City of Kent page, the YouTube Kent TV 21 channel, and anyone that's watching us live and anyone that's calling in today. We will go ahead and get started with the roll call.
Troutner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Core.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
I have noted the mayor's in attendance today too. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everyone. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Madam President, but just wanted to note that item 5 this afternoon is an executive session. The purpose is to review the performance of a public employee. Expected time is 15 minutes, and there will be no action when we reconvene in open session.
Great, thank you. So with that, we will move on to department presentations. The first item on the agenda is payment of bills. We all see those through an email, so we will move that on to the consent calendar. And up next is the 2020 fourth quarter and 2021 first quarter fee in lieu funds, and this requires action. So Terry Jungman, you have all of these presentations, so we'll kind of take each one at a time if you prefer.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council President, Council members. Thanks for having me tonight. Like you said, I've got 4 items to present to you tonight. I'll take them one at a time. To start, let me get my document open here. So the first item tonight is asking Council to move to recommend to accept $41,272.50 in fee in lieu funds. And that will amend the Community Parks Reinvestment Program budget, authorizing future expenditures of these funds for capital improvements. Those capital improvements will be occurring at 3 different sites. We received 4 cases for the fourth quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. We had a subdivision of 9 lots, which resulted in $19,200 that will be dedicated to Springwood Park. We also had 3 lot subdivision that was $8,175, and that is also being dedicated to Springwood Park. 3 lot subdivision for $7,200. That one is going to Park Orchard Park. And then lastly, we had a 2 lot subdivision that resulted in $6,697.50 that will be dedicated to Clark Lake Park. And we hold these funds in a reserve account until we have a project that is viable and vetted through the public process to then spend these funds on capital improvements typically. That's all I have for that item. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about these fee in lieu funds being accepted.
All right, anyone have any questions or comments? All right, no hands raised. Is everyone okay moving this forward to the consent calendar? Everyone is shaking their head. All right, we will move that forward to consent. We'll move on to the next item, which is a consultant service agreement with Berger Partnership for a 2020 Park and Open Space Plan, and this also requires action.
Thank you. So this is a really exciting one for us as a Parks Department. So yeah, like you said, consultant services agreement with Berger Partnership. This is for the 2022 to 2027 Parks and Open Space Plan. Just a bit of context on the previous plan and kind of where we are today. The last time we did a Parks and Open Space Plan update, that was adopted in 2016. So it's been a while. We do these approximately every 5 to 6 years. This consultant selection process was done through a competitive RFQ, and we had 7 responses. It was actually a very competitive process. I was really happy with the results of that RFQ. We had firms that came actually from all over the country that were interested in this project, which is really exciting. It was very competitive. We ended up with Berger Partnership. That's a consultant that we work with frequently on projects. They're a really well-established landscape architecture firm in the region. So we're excited to work with them again. So the Parks and Open Space Plan needs to be updated by 2022 for our RCO grant applications. That's one piece of that that's really important for us as a Parks Department because we leverage those grant funds with most of our capital projects. It's a really critical funding source to leverage with our Parks capital funding. Some major components of the Parks and Open Space Plan will be establishing overall goals and objectives. We will update our Parks inventory, and that will have a major emphasis on GIS analysis and mapping. That's something we're really excited about. That will be a big pivot in this 2022 plan is a major emphasis on GIS data. There will be a robust public engagement effort with a statistically valid survey and a very strong online presence. We will have a demand and need analysis that will update our recreational value methodology, and we'll also have some new measures related to parkland gaps and parkland deficiency and help guide our land acquisition program. We'll have a capital improvement program and funding plan, and then we'll have plan adoption. So those are kind of the major components of the Parks and Open Space Plan. As far as the schedule of that, assuming that this is approved at council next week, we will have an inventory phase through the end of this summer. Then we'll have engagement in the second half of 2021. And then we would have plan adoption in early 2022. That's all I have on this item, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
And Terry, I'm assuming throughout this process, you'll report back to council on how things are going and some of the feedback you're getting.
Absolutely. We have some milestones that are built into that process. We'll be coming back and kind of checking in with council. We will likely be doing some workshop items as well. So we will definitely be staying plugged into the council process.
Great. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Just a quick question, Madam President, and I know we do this every 5-6 years. I don't remember, right? So when we get through with this process, what would the deliverable be like, Terry?
Yeah, so there's really kind of two major deliverables. The plan itself, so that's a book. It provides all those items that I just sort of lined out. Those would all be baked into that book, and it would be a plan that would guide essentially all of our capital improvements for the next 6 years. It would be sort of that playbook, that guiding document that dictates how we invest our capital funding sources, and then also sort of strategizes how we would be looking to expand our capital program into other funding sources. As you know, we looked at the 2016 plan. Some of the recommendations were an expanded capital program, park impact fees. We've now kind of arrived for those items, right? We're now implementing projects with these new funding sources. And so that's what the plan intends to do. One of the things that we're really excited about with this new plan, this 2022 plan, is some story maps through ArcGIS Online. So rather than just having a book on the shelf that just kind of sits there and is something that people refer back to, is we want to have an interactive online presence. So we'll be building these GIS platforms that people can actually interact with a lot of the data that we'll be producing around project priorities, where capital investments need to be made, where we may need to make investments in new land acquisitions. And those will be things that will live through the duration of this next 5 to 6 year period. It'll be something that we'll want to keep kind of up to date and live information rather than it just being a static that it sits on the shelf. That book is important. It's something that we need to guide our program, but this is kind of another piece that we're looking to add to our Parks and Open Space Plan to make it a little bit more dynamic.
A follow-up, Madam President, if you don't mind, please. So Terry, so with the 2016, so once we got done with that, I'm assuming there's carryover that wasn't got done in 2016 that goes on this new plan. Can you talk about that just a little bit, please, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. These plans are always aspirational. You always kind of set yourself up with more goals and priorities than you would be able to achieve in a 6 year period. I mean, given infinite resources and funding and project managers to implement, sure, you could get to all of them. But there are going to be things within that 2016 plan that will carry forward into this 2022 plan, but they'll be put through a reprioritization, right? Let's make sure that these are our highest priorities. That was a moment in time. Things have changed. We've gotten new funding sources, so we want to take a look at these things again.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Great. I saw a couple other hands up, but I'm guessing your questions got answered. Anybody else have anything to add? All right. So are we okay moving this forward to the consent calendar? Perfect. Lots of head nodding. We'll move that forward to consent. Next, we have the easement to Lake Meridian Water District for a new well at Meadows Park that also requires action.
Great. And I actually have a presentation for this item and for the next item. So I'm going to pull those presentations up now. Give me just a moment here. Okay, thank you. So I'm here on this third item to discuss an easement agreement with the Lake Meridian Water District at Sun Meadows Park. Just a little bit of context of where we are in the city. So City of Kent and its boundary, Sun Meadows is here on the red dot, just southeast of Springwood Park, near Lake Meridian. Kind of zooming in on Sun Meadows Park, you can see 132nd Avenue here and 282nd on the south side. It's a small neighborhood park. Actually, I need to move this window out of the way because it's not allowing me to read my text. Okay, there we go. So it's a small neighborhood park on the East Hill. It was annexed from King County in 1996 and conveyed to the city in 1999. It has a small well house and a water treatment facility at the southeast corner that's already owned by the Lake Meridian Water District. And there you can see the existing well, a kind of white dot in the center of the park. Current amenities and facilities in the park, just generally an open lawn space. It has a perimeter fence, especially on the 132nd Avenue side, which can be a busy street at times. And it has a half-court basketball here in the northwest corner of the park. This is a project that's identified in our 6-year capital plan. So it's actually decent timing that the Water District had approached us with the need for some additional work in the park. We had identified some funding in our 6-year plan that would make some modest improvements to the park out in 2023. Now we're looking to accelerate that because there is a project that's happening through the Lake Meridian Water District and kind of building upon those impacts that will happen through their construction phase. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. So that's Sun Meadows Park. That's where we are in the city. A little bit of information about Lake Meridian Water District. They were incorporated in 1962. They are formerly known as the King County Water District number 111. That may be a name that you've heard before or familiar with. In 1985, they began operation of this well through King County. In 2006, they had a small project to make some improvements to the treatment and water quality and expanded facilities at this site. That was the last time that they've made any capital investments in this particular well. This well provides water service to over 20,000 residents in the city of Kent. And the need that they have right now is they need to drill a new well to meet the existing service demands. Basically, this existing well is only providing a certain quantity of water, and they need to drill a new well to meet those service demands. As we've kind of moved through this process of understanding the Lake Meridian Water District's needs and working through sort of the legal arrangements to make this possible, we did find that they did not have any existing easement agreements for their existing facilities. And so that's another thing that we're rectifying with this item is addressing those existing facilities and granting the easements for those existing facilities and making sure that that's documented, but also allowing for both the temporary and permanent easements to construct their new facilities. So what is happening? Water District is going to construct new facilities, a wellhead, a well house, an asphalt driveway access, and some underground utilities. You can kind of see them here on this diagram. So north is actually on this side, but this is going to be where the new well house is located with the well house is here with the well there. This is going to be driveway access into the park. And then you can see all of the utilities that are going to connect over to their water treatment facility in the southeast corner. The blue line represents the permanent easements that will be granted, and then the red line is the temporary construction easement. So that would just be for the duration of them building these improvements, and then that easement would go away after that work is complete. So as part of the negotiation of this arrangement, the Water District will be making a financial compensation payment to the city in the amount of $45,000, both for the permanent and the temporary easement. So sort of documenting all those things that were previously installed and for all of the new things that are going to be installed. One of the important things to us as we were arranging this is for that easement agreement to include a park site plan so that it could protect our future investments. Obviously, when these utilities are installed, it's going to limit our ability to make improvements in the park because there's certain underground utilities that you really wouldn't want to have permanent park infrastructure just in case they had to get in there and make changes or get access to their facilities. And so some of these decisions are putting us in a place where we really need to understand what we could do with the park given all of these utilities. And so we moved through a process with one of our consultants to come up with a really basic kind of concept plan of what could happen in the park. This is very high level. It's not to say that this is actually what will be built, but it's just to kind of show what's possible and to begin to reserve some space in the park where we could build out some future park development. So you can kind of see here, it would be a loop trail, some pickleball courts. Here's the existing basketball court, and we're showing a sand volleyball court. And again, this diagram was really just used, one, to value the compensation so that we could understand what we could negotiate for in terms of the payment from the water district, but again, to also start to reserve some of these spaces in the park and make sure that it's not, there's space for us to build out in the future when we have our project. So park planning, design, and construction would be something that would follow the completion of the new well project. So after they're done with their construction, we would come in and do our work. So talking a little bit about these future park improvements, we need to have some public engagement with the neighborhood to talk about what they need, what they would like to see in this park. So that would kind of be our step one. We would probably come to them with this concept plan and get some feedback on it just as a starting point since the work is already done. What we're proposing right now, as I've said, loop walking path, 2 pickleball courts. We know that those are high demand facilities for us. We get calls about them all the time. We would continue to, retain that half court basketball, make some improvements to that, sand volleyball court, and some additional trees and landscaping. The site is pretty much just open lawn. It doesn't have anything that frames the site very well or adds a lot of character. And so we would definitely want to come in with some additional trees, landscape, and irrigation just to enhance that overall landscape. Tentatively, our schedule for those improvements, leveraging the $45,000 that we would get from the water district with some of our parks capital funding, would be to go into planning and design in 2022 as they're starting to wrap up the final portion of their work, and then move into construction around 2023. And that's all that I have on that. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Great improvements. Councilmember Michaud.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for that presentation. Okay, so they're going to build, so they're going to build a driveway on the park next to the basketball court there, and that's staying there?
That's right. And what we've done, and you can kind of see it's incorporated into the plan, we are going to make best use of that driveway. It's not a driveway that they'll need to use often. They really just describe that facility as something when they have to get in there with heavy equipment to work on pumps or something of that nature, they'll need to get in there. They do not want to have to pull those bollards every time. They just have to go do a routine check on the facility. So understanding that it's not something they're using all the time, we have kind of made this our formal park entrance. If you've been to the park, you know that there really is no formal entrance into the park. It's just sidewalk right out into the lawn space. And so let's make lemonade out of lemons here. Let's take this driveway and incorporate it into our circular pathway. So that's what we've tried to do is to make efficient use of that asphalt that will get put in there. They're going to work with our landscape architect on the design of that driveway to make sure it ties in with our facilities.
Okay, and then so right above that driveway on this photo, is that a building?
It's a small well house. Yes, they have to house that new well for public safety reasons.
Okay, what's that gray space, that darker gray space underneath there?
So this would all be asphalt.
Okay.
It would be sort of the asphalt apron that would support that well house.
And then all those blue lines, that's just underground stuff.
Yes.
I'm guessing. Okay.
Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Terry, when do we receive that $45,000 from the water district? When do you receive that?
I believe that we would receive that within 30 days of signature. That's I believe the way that the agreement is written.
So, why did it take so long? I mean, we know the $45,000 to come, right? So you're talking 2022 to do the plan and 2023 for implementation. I mean, I just think we know it's coming, I just have a hard time understanding why it just takes so long. Why can't we simultaneously work to kind of speed this up?
Yeah, part of the reason is we already have an existing workload of projects, and those are things that were already in our queue, and we were moving these things along. This project is now leapfrogging some other projects because the funding is coming in earlier, and so we have not started on it yet. We're basically starting on this project now. So for us to go through a public engagement effort, get a design consultant on board, have them move through a design process, put together bid documents, get this project permitted, get it constructed, it takes about a year plus to make that entire process happen when you're, balancing it with all the other simultaneous projects that we have going on. So that's just about how long the process takes for us to move these projects through those early phases of planning and design and to get it to construction. We always hope to move along faster, but this is kind of my conservative estimate of when I think we can make the work happen.
And just a last comment. All of your presentation been very professional, very knowledgeable. So I really, really appreciate that. And glad we have you on our team as well, too. So thank you, sir.
Well, thanks so much for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. So Terry, what is the length of that driveway?
Let's see. I can't see the detail on this drawing, but I was just in the field yesterday talking with that group. It's probably about 20 to 30 feet, I would say, is the length of the driveway before you then get to that apron. I don't really think that if we design the facilities right and we connect our loop trails in with that driveway in the appropriate way, and we kind of celebrate this arrival into the park in the right way here at the sidewalk, I don't think it's going to feel as big of an impact to the park as it maybe looks on the plan. When you're looking at it in 2 dimensions, you say, well, that's a big driveway just kind of right at the beginning of the park.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the reason why we want to engage our landscape architect early with their team to make sure that what's being built is something that ties in with the rest of the park and doesn't just look like a facility that got plopped into the middle of the park. That's something that we're very sensitive to, and we want to make sure that the finished product is park-like. It looks like a park. It's inviting to people. That's the goal here.
Okay. And it's going to be dedicated driveway. No matter what, it's going to be dedicated driveway. It's just going to look inviting and park-like. We're not going to be able to put anything on that correct?
No, we would not want to put anything on it because they have to get trucks in and out of there at least a few times a year. If we wanted to do some decorative paint on it to make it something that's more attractive, I think that they would be open to something like that. But these are all things we have to kind of work out with the water district and our maintenance teams. I'm just kind of giving ideas. It takes a little bit more than just, an idea that I have to say, yeah, that's a thing that we can support as a department. So I think there are going to be other ways for us to make this look attractive and not a nuisance for us in the park.
Okay, the decorative paint or Foursquare or something would be preferable to having it just driveway. Thank you.
I think that those are great ideas. And we actually did something very similar to this at Meridian Glen a couple of years back with that project. There was a right-of-way dead-end street that was kind of causing issues, and we put a little cycle track on it and Foursquare, and people use it all the time. So these are ideas that we're definitely open to. They're low cost. They're paint on asphalt. It really is, as far as capital investments are concerned, it's very reasonable for us to look at those types of things. So that's great feedback.
Thank you.
Councilman Finch, I look forward to seeing you doing the Foursquare, Councilman Finch.
I'll take you on.
Councilmember Michaud, you still had your hand up. Do you have additional questions?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Okay, Terry. So are they keeping the old building over there on the right-hand side of this picture?
Yes, that building will remain. That is their water treatment building, and so it serves a different function than this new building.
Okay, so I have a request. Can we please get a new basketball hoop in the meantime so we don't have to wait till 2023? I know I saw all of you over there yesterday, so I know you saw it. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, just to be really frank, the entire side of Sun Meadows needs help. It doesn't have character. It has just a basketball court. It needs all the help that it can get. And so I've taken a note here that at a bare minimum, let's get a new hoop out there. Let's make it a better facility. Yeah, there's no reason we would have to wait to 2023 to do that.
All right. Any other questions, Councilmember Lerma? You had your hand up. Did your question get answered?
I was just going to suggest Foursquare hopscotch on that apron. So
Competition here.
Councilmember Fincher.
If there's the opportunity for art in there, remember the Art Commission loves to have art, and especially if there's any walls that murals could go on.
Great feedback. Taking notes.
All right. Any other questions or comments? You've given some good feedback to Terry. So is everyone okay moving this particular request forward to the consent calendar? All right, wonderful. We will go ahead and put that on consent and move on to the item for the Mendel property acquisition.
Great. Last item here for me. This is another one that we're pretty excited about. Okay, so last one, Mendel property acquisition. Just move right into it here. Just a little bit of context of where we are. Mill Creek Canyon, earthworks parked here at the northwest end. The Mendel property, the property that we are discussing tonight as a potential acquisition, is here at the southeast end of the canyon in red. Zooming in a little bit, Mill Creek Canyon South, as we call it. We actually purchased a property in 2018 known as the Ransom property. So that's the one outlined in blue here. It's directly adjacent to the Mendel property. It's 3 acres. Like I said, purchased in 2018 for a price of $890,000. This was actually a replacement property for our RCO conversion for the YMCA project. So the property that we are talking about tonight for acquisition is 2.25 acres, and its appraised value is $900,000. Looking at the Mendel property in a little bit more detail, this is a really attractive property. It's a flat property. It actually has really beautiful landscape on it, very mature trees in the back. The property has kind of been cultivated by the current owners and has its own kind of natural trail system in the back of their property. Like I said, its appraised value is $900,000. You'll recall that this item, we received King County Conservation Futures Tax Grant funding in the amount of $450,000 in 2019 for this property acquisition. Our plan right now is to fund this acquisition, the balance of this acquisition, with our own Parks Capital funding. So we would pay the second half of $450,000 out of Parks Capital, but we would continue to apply for the RCO Local Parks Grant in 2022, 2024, kind of depending on what year we get it for the remaining $450,000. The way that RCO grant works, we can actually apply for it retroactively, which means we can secure the acquisition now with our own funding and then get reimbursed for that funding through that RCO Local Parks Grant. So the net impact to our Parks Capital budget would be zero, assuming that we get that grant in the future. We actually did apply last year for the RCO grant. It's looking like we were unsuccessful in this current round, but we got some really good feedback from the grant panel that looked at our project, and we feel very confident in obtaining this grant in future years. So like I said, Parks Capital budget will cover the $450,000 now with future reimbursement through RCO Local Parks. You'll recall that we did this same setup with the Hughes property, and in actuality, it scores really well on these RCO Local Parks grants whenever you already have secured the acquisition and are applying for it retroactively. So I think some of this will play out to our advantage by securing the acquisition now for future grant cycles. So I just wanted to kind of talk about the open space need that we have in the city. The map on the left just kind of shows where we have big open space facilities in our system. You know, on the West Hill, we have the collection of Fenwick properties, Lake Fenwick and West Fenwick, and those are serving the West Hill. On the East Hill, we have Clark Lake, wildly successful and popular facility that serves the East Hill, you know, some acquisition priorities there as well. And then in the center of the city, kind of serving downtown, the core, we have Mill Creek Canyon. In our 2016 Parks and Open Space Plan, this acquisition and sort of the facility that can be built through both the Mendel and the Ransom property is called out. That's kind of priority number 11, which is called South Mill Creek Park. Improve the gateway trailhead to the Upper Canyon and renovate the park to become a Tier 4 park. Kind of this is part and parcel to that effort to begin to make Mill Creek Canyon this true destination facility for the city. So it's supported by our 2016 Parks and Open Space Plan. As part of our RCO Local Parks Grant process, we developed a quick little schematic plan that we could use essentially as a graphic in that grant process. It always helps if you can kind of show a level of effort in the planning process. So we put this together. So again, kind of frame of reference, Ransom property is here on the right. The Mendel property, this dashed line, is here to the left. Part of the reason why this Mendel property is so attractive to us is that the Ransom property is very close to the steep canyon slopes and is within the setback of Mill Creek. So the develop potential of this property is much lower than the Mendel property. So to do things like parking and facilities is more challenging. But by combining these two parcels and having them as part of this southeast end, the Upper Mill Creek arrival point, we can actually build that trailhead, that kind of arrival point for Mill Creek Canyon on the south end and create that other anchor facility. So why is this acquisition important? As I said, trailhead parking at the southeast end provides that anchor facility. We have the anchor facility on the lower end, on the north end. That's Earthworks Park. It's been there. It's a very successful facility. We know that serves that end, but we need this southeast end connection. It's something that will really sort of string together the network, the network of trails that's within Mill Creek by connecting them on both the upper and the lower side. It also connects the south end of Mill Creek to that overall trail network, and it provides that connectivity to the East Hill. So, by having this southeast end connection, you have that closer access to East Hill and those residents that live on the East Hill. Looking at the plan in a little bit more detail, some of the things that we're proposing, and again, this is all subject to public process. We're coming up with these plans as a way to sort of envision what the park space could be, but with everything that we do, we want to talk to the public. We want to get earnest feedback from them on what types of facilities they want to see here before we do anything, take anything forward into design or construction. But kind of as we've envisioned it today, to make this facility something that we can build in the near term, and kind of build upon the momentum that we've started with the cleanup effort of Mill Creek, we would look at establishing a parking lot, kind of utilizing some of the existing impervious cover from the previous home, kiosk and signage, tying in the sidewalk at Scenic Hill with the site property to get access in to the overall trail network. We're showing an outdoor classroom here. That's something that we know we've identified in some of our recreation program planning and in the Parks and Open Space Plan, is that there's a need for nature-based learning and nature-based education. And so this is a facility that we see as being a real opportunity for us to have a place where we can do outdoor education. So to have an outdoor classroom and then to have a smaller trail network that allows people a lower difficulty entry into the Mill Creek trail system. As you get deep into Mill Creek, some of the hiking can be kind of challenging, but for us to do something that's a little bit more kid-friendly, doesn't have steep terrain, is something that we think could be really attractive for some of this nature-based learning and education that we could do at this location. So outdoor classroom, and then to have a small loop trail system with some interpretive signage and that sort of thing would be what we look to develop this as a kind of a phase 1 development for this site. So just kind of showing opportunities, what the potential is of the property, what's possible. So that's all I have on this presentation. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about it, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions that you have.
Great, thanks, Terry. I'm going to start with Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Terry, that property to the east of this area is the one with the gazebo on it?
I am not sure. That predates my time. There may have been a gazebo on that property at some point, but
it's still there. So is that 104th then to the east?
So this is 100th place here, 264th, and then 267th here. So 104th over here, yeah.
Yeah, because I live right next, not next to the property, but close to it. I'm on 270th. Okay, all right. So, thank you.
Councilmember Larmer.
I just don't see 104th on you. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Council President. Thanks, Terry. Great presentation. I like the idea of the interpretive trail that's a little flatter for younger kids. Couple questions. The existing house, I saw that still in the image, and I don't know, would that remain and be repurposed, or did that come down?
No, generally these sites, these old homes, to try and renovate or some adaptive reuse of the house, it ends up being more expensive than just demolishing it and building something new. So I think in the future, if we were to do some kind of small facility that could serve as like an indoor environment that then leads into the outdoor environment, we would demolish the house and we would reset the property to then be able to activate it in kind of the ways that we showed in that schematic plan. Just to kind of talk a little bit more about the arrangement, the owners of the property do still live in the home. The purchase and sale agreement that we're working out with them will basically give them an opportunity to find their new home and give them an opportunity to move out. So yeah, there's a period of time after the execution of this item that they'll be kind of getting out of the home, and then we'll be demolishing that after.
Okay. And then second question on the other image that showed the trail. This one, yeah. So the connection to Mill Creek Trail here at the top left, how steep is that? How steep will that be?
This is actually not very steep, surprisingly. So there is I believe it's a underground utility easement that it's not really an easement, but it's basically underground utility. This corridor is essentially already clear up to a point here, and it would not take much more work. Actually, let me go back to this. So here you can actually see. So the existing trail ends here. For us to make this connection from here to here is actually not very much work. It's a relatively flat corridor. The vegetation is not overly dense. It would just take some cutting and some trail building, but very possible and something that we believe that we can do in the near term. So that's another reason, and I should have said this earlier in the presentation, I was moving a bit too quickly, but that's one of the really attractive pieces of this is these two properties combined allow us to connect this trail system to the southeast end and fill this gap, this missing link here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Corr.
Thank you, Terry, for great presentations and for all the information. My question's kind of already been asked, but the other part of it is, are we going to be preserving any of the trees and the vegetation on this property? Is that part of the plan, or? Absolutely.
One of the things that's most impressive about the property is the mature trees. So the way that we approach this work, is being sensitive to the landscape. There is no need to take out big mature trees. Those trees are part of what makes this an impressive place to be in. And so any sort of development that we would do would seek to preserve and protect all of these trees. We consider them assets and things that make this a special place.
Thank you.
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. Terry, have the property owners already agreed to sell us at this price to us?
Yes, we've been in negotiation with these property owners basically since I started 2 years ago. So this has been a long time in the making. Actually, those discussions even predate my time, but they got handed off to me. And so they have been very much partners at the table, willing sellers. They want this to be preserved as a park. That's part of their desire and the reason why they had approached to the city about it, and part of why we're bringing this item to you tonight.
Well, it looks like a beautiful property, and it's a great legacy for them. It looks great. Thanks.
Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. Terry, so about halfway, there's that little cutout off of Canyon. Is that the Legion property? What is that?
That's the Legion property.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Councilmember Thomas, did you get your question answered earlier? All right, I'm guessing so. Any other questions or comments? All right, so we have action before us for this acquisition. Is everyone okay moving this forward to consent? All right, we will move that to the consent calendar. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. All of these were great presentations and they will be moved forward to the consent calendar.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time and all of the thoughtful questions.
Great. We are going to move on then to item number 5, which is executive session. And as Derek mentioned, it'll be about 15 minutes. So now I am going to turn it over to Kim to go ahead and clear the room, and then we will come back afterwards to adjourn the meeting.
I need to relocate to a different room.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We are back from executive session. There is no action to be taken, so that brings us to the end of our meeting today. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe, take care, and have a great evening. We will see you next week. We are
Good night,
adjourned.
all.